us today. We've got an interesting story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is James, and what I'm about to tell you is something I never thought I'd experience in my own marriage. You know how people say trust is the foundation of a relationship? Well, let's just say I found out the hard way what happens when that trust is put to the test. I always believed my wife and I were on the same page about everything. Our goals, our future, even the home we lived in. But one day, I stumbled upon something that completely shattered that belief. I took a different approach and taught her a lesson that neither of us would forget, but not in the way you might expect. So, buckle up, because this is a story of what happens when you find out that the person you love might not have been as honest as you thought. You know, if you had asked me a month ago, I would have told you that my wife, Linda, and I had a solid, happy marriage. We had been together for 5 years, and like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but overall, things were good. Nothing about our life felt unusual or out of place. We lived in a beautiful 2-story house, nothing too extravagant, but cozy enough to feel like home. From the very beginning, I believed we were renting it from some faceless landlord, just another ordinary part of life. Linda always handled the payments, and I didn't think twice about it. It made sense. She was better with finances, and I trusted her completely. Every month, like clockwork, I'd transfer the rent to her, and she would take care of the rest. It wasn't something I ever questioned because, in my mind, it was just a shared responsibility, like groceries or utilities. That's how marriage works, right? You divide the costs, support each other, and keep life running smoothly. At least, that's what I thought. One evening, I was at home, sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through some paperwork. You know those boring adult responsibilities, bills, bank statements, insurance documents, all that stuff. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just trying to get organized. That's when I came across a folder I didn't recognize. Curious, I flipped it open and right there, staring back at me, was an official-looking document with our home's address on it. At first, I didn't think much of it, but then I saw the name. It wasn't some random landlord's name printed on the deed. It was Linda's. For a second, my brain refused to process what I was looking at. It had to be a mistake. But the more I looked, the less sense it made. I started flipping through the folder, scanning every page, and that's when I found bank statements. Statements showing that every rent payment I had made over the years had been going directly into an account linked to Linda. And just like that, the truth hit me like a truck. Linda wasn't just my wife. She was my landlord. I sat there staring at the paper, my hands gripping the edges so tightly. My wife, Linda, the woman I trusted with everything, had been lying to me for years. She was collecting every dollar, watching me pull money from our shared income to line her separate account. And she never said a word. It wasn't even about the money. If she had told me from the beginning that she owned the house, I wouldn't have cared. We could have worked something out like a normal couple. But that was the problem. She chose to keep me in the dark. She watched me sign those rent checks and never once said, "James, you don't need to pay this. The house is already ours." No, instead, she let me believe we were renters. And she played along like she was just as in the dark as I was. That realization hit me harder than any argument we'd ever had. This was a choice she made to hide the truth from me. And if she could lie about something this big, what else had she been lying about? That's when something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to explode, yell, or throw things. That's not how you deal with betrayal. If she wanted to play this game, I was going to change the rules. I didn't say a word to Linda that night. I ate dinner with her, listened to her talk about her day, and nodded at the right moments, all while knowing that tomorrow morning, I was going straight to a lawyer. Because if she thought she could get away with this, she was wrong. I wasn't going to be a fool any longer. The next day, I walked into a law office and laid everything out on the table. The lawyer listened, nodding as he skimmed through the documents I had brought. When he finally looked up at me, his face didn't hold any surprise. He'd seen things like this before. "You have a case," he said plainly. "Since you live in a community property state, you have a legal right to claim part of the house. It doesn't matter that she kept it under her name. You've been contributing to it financially, which makes it a marital asset." Hearing that felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. Legally, She had been misleading me in a way that could be considered financial fraud within marriage. The lawyer told me that I could sue her, and if I pursued it, I had a strong chance of getting a legal claim over the property. Then, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. He pointed out that my rent payments had been used to renovate the house. New kitchen countertops, bathroom upgrades, even the fancy backyard patio we had installed last summer. I had helped increase the property value without knowing that the investment was only benefiting her. That meant I could file for an ownership adjustment, since my money had directly contributed to making the home worth more. I sat there, taking it all in, and it became clear to me. Linda had made a calculated decision to keep me in the dark while benefiting from my money. But now, the tables had turned. She had set the game up in her favor, but she forgot one thing. I could play smart too. I didn't hesitate. I gave the lawyer the green light to proceed with legal action. If she wanted to keep secrets, she was about to face the consequences. I'll never forget the look on Linda's face when she opened that envelope. It was around 6 p.m., just after she got home from work. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through my phone, but in reality, I was watching her every move. She kicked off her shoes, sighed, and grabbed the stack of mail from the counter. Bills, a grocery store coupon, and then she saw it. The crisp, official-looking envelope with her name on it. She tore it open casually, probably expecting some boring paperwork. But the moment her eyes landed on the first few lines, her entire expression changed. I could see the confusion setting in. Her eyes darted across the page, scanning the words over and over like she was trying to convince herself she was reading it wrong. She blinked rapidly, like she was trying to wake up from a bad dream. "James, what is this?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked up at me, her hands gripping the papers so tightly. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my face as unreadable as possible. "Exactly what it says, Linda," I said. "A fraud complaint. Ownership adjustment. Legal action." She stumbled back, pressing her palm against the kitchen counter as she needed it to stay upright. Her eyes glossed over with tears. No, James, you didn't." But I had. Tears spilled onto her cheeks as she took a shaky step toward me, her voice breaking apart. "Please, James, don't do this. Don't take this to court. Let's just talk about this. Please." She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She was terrified. And that almost made me angrier, because I wanted to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget in a hurry. I folded my arms and exhaled sharply. "Why, Linda? Why the hell did you lie to me?" She wiped her face with her sleeve, trying to steady herself. She didn't answer right away. She just shook her head, her breath hitching in her throat. That was when I realized she wasn't just upset about the lawsuit. She was about to tell me something I wasn't expecting. She pulled out a chair and sat down across from me, her hands trembling as she set the papers on the table. She stared at them for a few seconds before finally speaking. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I swear, James, I never did." I didn't respond. I just waited. If she had an explanation, I wanted to hear it. And if it was just another excuse, I wanted to know exactly how far she'd go to defend herself. She swallowed hard. "I inherited the house before we got married. It was my mom's place, and when she passed, she left it to me. It was mine, James. Something that was just mine." I asked, "So why didn't you tell me?" She let out a shaky breath, her eyes darting to the floor. "Because I wanted to protect myself." I frowned. "Protect yourself? From me?" She looked up quickly, shaking her head. "No, not from you. Just from the unknown. From the what-ifs. I grew up watching my mom struggle after my dad left. She had no backup, no savings, nothing to fall back on. She thought their marriage would last forever, and when it didn't, she was left with nothing. I swore that if I ever got married, I'd never put myself in that position." I leaned forward, my elbows resting on my knees. "So you made me think we were renting? Maybe pay you rent? Let me believe we were in this together when you were just, what? Keeping a way out just in case." Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head again. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't about tricking you. I just..." I didn't know how to tell you without it sounding wrong. At first, I told myself it didn't matter because we were splitting expenses like any other couple. And then, as time went on, I got scared. What if you got angry? What if it changed the way you saw me? Part of me understood what she was saying. Fear makes people do stupid things. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore the reality. She had built our marriage on a lie. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she wanted control. So what now? I asked. You expect me to just forget about it? Pretend it never happened? She wiped her eyes again, her voice trembling. No, I don't expect anything. I just want to fix this. I don't want to lose you, James. Please. I stared at her for a long time. The woman sitting across from me wasn't some heartless con artist. She is my wife. And now, she was breaking under the weight of her own choices. But I also knew that a marriage built on secrecy and hidden agendas would never last. The question was, where did we go from here? I took my time thinking it through, weighing my anger against the reality of the situation. Was I hurt? Yes. Did I feel betrayed? Absolutely. But was this worth blowing up our marriage over? Probably not. She had made a selfish decision, thinking she was protecting herself. And truth be told, I wasn't innocent either. I had trusted her blindly with everything related to the house, never questioning anything. Maybe that was my mistake too. So, after careful thought, I made my decision. I told her I would withdraw the lawsuit, but this wasn't going to be swept under the rug like nothing happened. There had to be changes. I made it clear this wasn't just about the house. This was about trust, about the way we handled things as a couple. Marriage isn't a business deal where one person holds all the cards. It's not about power, control, or keeping safety nets just in case. If you're in it, you're all in. Linda had made a choice to put herself first when she should have been thinking about us. That had to change. I told her, plain and simple, that there's no security in marriage without trust. If she really wanted to protect our future, we needed to do it together, as partners, not as opponents playing a financial game behind each other's backs. Linda listened this time, and when she spoke, she didn't try to justify her actions. She didn't make excuses. She owned it. She apologized, sincerely, not just for lying, but for what that lie had done to our marriage. She admitted she had been wrong and promised to never keep financial secrets from me again. That's when we sat down and had the conversation we should have had years ago. We laid everything out, our savings, our investments, our long-term goals. No more guessing, no more pretending, and most importantly, no more rent. From that day forward, the house became our home, not just something I unknowingly paid into. We agreed that from now on, all financial decisions, big or small, would be made together. No more hidden accounts, no more unspoken agreements. We set up a shared financial plan where we both knew where the money was going. But here's the thing, after everything that happened, after the legal action, after the tough conversations, I realized something important. Yeah, I taught her a lesson. But honestly, I learned one too. Marriage isn't about keeping secrets, no matter how good you think your reasons are. It's not about trying to one-up each other or setting up safety nets behind your partner's back. It's about honesty, communication, and actually being a team. The moment you start treating marriage like a game where only one person wins, you both lose. By the end of it, the tension that had been sitting between us for days finally broke. We laughed at how ridiculous it all was, how something so simple, something that could have been resolved with an honest conversation, had nearly turned into a legal battle. It wasn't perfect. I wouldn't pretend that trust could be magically restored overnight. But we were willing to rebuild, and that was what mattered. So yeah, that's my story. How I found out my wife was secretly my landlady, and how I turned things around. But more importantly, it's about how we fixed what was broken and came out stronger in the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing what you guys think. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.